I was sitting on the crinkly paper of the examination table in my doctor office last month, just swinging my legs back and forth while I waited for him to read my chart. When he finally walked in, he did not look at my face first. He looked down at my legs. He set his clipboard down on the counter, pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, and asked me straight out what exactly I had been doing for the past 2 years. He told me that men my age, men in their early 70s, are supposed to be losing muscle mass every single year. He told me my thighs looked thicker and denser than they did when I was 65. He said I had more leg muscle than some of the 50-year-old guys sitting out in his waiting room. He actually asked me if I was taking some kind of expensive new supplement or drinking those chemical protein shakes they sell in the plastic jugs at the pharmacy. I had to laugh. I told him I had not touched a powder in my life. I told him I just changed what I put on my dinner plate, and I focused heavily on one specific food that most folks our age completely ignore. He sat down, pulled out his pen, and actually asked me to explain it to him. But I did not always have these legs. 3 years ago, I was sitting on the edge of my bed trying to stand up, and my legs felt like they were made of wet cardboard. I had spent over 3 decades working in logistics and warehouse management right here in Knoxville. I spent my entire life lifting, carrying, walking, and using my body like a forklift. I thought I was carved out of stone, but when I retired, things changed quietly. I started noticing that standing up from the deep armchair in our living room took a lot more effort than it used to. I found myself gripping the steering wheel of my truck just to haul myself out of the driver's seat. My legs felt hollow. They felt shaky when I carried a heavy bag of dog food up the front steps. I remember looking at my own thighs in the mirror after a shower and realizing they were physically shrinking. The muscle was just melting away, and my knees were starting to take the full brutal weight of every step I took. It scared me. It scared me because I knew exactly what happens to older men when their legs go. Their world shrinks. They stop going to the hardware store. They stop climbing the stairs to see their grandkids. They end up trapped in a single room on the first floor of their house. My wife, Linda, could see the fear in my eyes, even when I refused to say a word about it. Linda used to be a school administrator, and she approaches every problem by gathering information. She talked to our daughter Megan, who works as an occupational therapist. Megan came over one Sunday afternoon and sat me down at the kitchen table with a stack of papers she had printed out from a medical journal. She explained to me that what I was feeling was not just normal aging. It was not just bad joints or arthritis. It was something called sarcopenia. It is a quiet, invisible process where your body literally starts eating its own muscle tissue because you are getting older and you are not giving it the exact right fuel to keep the muscle alive. Megan pointed to a study published by the American Geriatric Society that showed how a massive percentage of folks over 50 are losing their leg strength simply because their daily meals are completely empty of the building blocks the body needs to repair itself. The muscle just packs its bags and leaves. When I heard that, I felt a strange sense of relief. If the muscle was leaving because it was starving, that meant I could feed it. That meant I could coax it back. I did not need a knee replacement. I needed to rebuild the engine. I spent the next 2 years figuring out exactly how to do that. I threw out the old rules I grew up with, and I found a specific routine of eating that completely changed the foundation of my body. I'm going to tell you exactly what I did. I am going to walk you through the 5 specific things I brought into my kitchen that reversed that hollow feeling in my legs. The first 4 are the foundation, but that 5th one is the exact food I told my doctor about. It is the one that stunned him. It is the one thing you probably walk past in the grocery store every single week without a second thought. And I promise you, by the time we are done talking today, you are going to look at your next meal completely differently. I am 73 years old. I am not a bodybuilder and I am not a dietitian. I am just a guy who saw the cliff approaching and decided to turn the wheel before I went over the edge. My son Derek runs a heating and air business, and he tells me stories all the time about men my age who call him to fix their upstairs air conditioning because they physically cannot climb their own stairs to check the filter. men who just accept the weakness because they think it is a mandatory tax you pay for getting old. It is not mandatory. You just have to know how to fuel the machine. Let us talk about the first thing I had to change. For my entire working life, I thought a piece of toast, a banana, and a cup of black coffee was a perfectly good breakfast. I thought as long as my stomach was not growling, I was fine. The biggest mistake I was making, and the mistake almost every senior makes, is eating like a bird and expecting to stay strong like an ox. I had to introduce a massive amount of lean protein back into my life, things like roasted turkey breast, chicken, and white fish. Megan explained to me that as we age, our bodies become incredibly inefficient at processing protein. When you are 20 years old, your body can build muscle out of a handful of peanuts. When you are 70, your body needs a very loud, clear signal to build muscle. Lean meats contain a specific amino acid called leucine. Think of leucine like the foreman on a warehouse loading dock. If the foreman is not there, the workers just sit around doing nothing. When you eat a solid piece of chicken breast, that leucine acts like the foreman blowing a whistle, telling your body to start stacking boxes and repairing the muscle fibers in your legs. I started making sure I had a solid piece of lean meat at least twice a day. No more just eating a bowl of oatmeal and calling it a meal. My buddy Tom, who lives 3 houses down from me, used to complain all the time about how his legs felt like jelly when he stood up from weeding his garden. I asked him what he ate on a normal day. He told me he had cornflakes for breakfast, a slice of cheese on bread for lunch, and maybe some soup for dinner. He was literally starving his legs to death while feeling completely full. I told him to start eating a proper chicken breast with his lunch every single day. He thought I was crazy, but he did it. 2 months later, I saw him pushing a heavy wheelbarrow full of wet mulch up his driveway without stopping once. The muscle was always ready to work. It just needed the raw materials to rebuild itself. That brings me to the second piece of the puzzle. I was always a meat and potatoes guy. I avoided anything green on my plate for 50 years. But when my legs started getting weak, I also started getting these brutal, twisting cramps in my calves in the middle of the night. I would have to jump out of bed and stand barefoot on the cold hardwood floor just to get the muscle to unlock. Megan looked at my plate one night and told me my muscles were suffocating. They were misfiring because they lacked the exact minerals needed to contract and relax smoothly. That is when I started eating deep green vegetables. I am talking about peas and spinach. I never liked them, but I learned to look at them like medicine. Those bright green peas and those dark spinach leaves are absolutely loaded with magnesium and something called vitamin K. Magnesium is the spark plug for your muscles. It regulates the electrical signals that tell your leg to step up and tell it to relax when you're standing still. Without it, your muscles get stiff, heavy, and confused. And peas are secretly packed with plant protein and iron, which carries oxygen straight down into the tissue of your thighs. I started eating a heavy scoop of cooked peas 3 times a week. I would mix spinach into my eggs in the morning. A guy I used to work with down at the warehouse, an old dispatcher named Frank, was having such bad leg cramps that he stopped driving his car because he was afraid his foot would lock up on the brake pedal. I told him about the greens. He started dumping a handful of spinach into his morning soup. It took about 3 weeks, but the cramps faded out to nothing. His legs stopped locking up. You have to give the muscle the minerals it needs to breathe, or it will just freeze up on you. The third change I made was something I frankly resisted for a long time. Growing up, fish was something you only ate deep fried on a Friday night. I never touched salmon or any of those oily cold water fish, but as my legs got weaker, my knees and hips also started carrying this deep, burning ache. It felt like the hinges were rusted shut. My doctor told me that weakness in the legs is often accompanied by massive silent inflammation. Your body is practically on fire on the inside, and that fire destroys muscle tissue faster than you can build it. He told me I needed omega-3 oils to put the fire out. I started buying salmon. I learned how to bake it in the oven with just a little bit of lemon juice and black pepper. I made a rule to eat it twice a week. Those specific oils in the salmon do not just sit in your stomach. They travel through your blood and act like a premium lubricant for your muscle fibers and your joints. They wash away the inflammation that makes your legs feel like they are wrapped in heavy lead blankets. After a month of eating that fish, I realized I was walking down my front steps without holding the wooden railing. The friction in my joints was just gone. Linda noticed it before I did. She watched me walk across the yard to get the mail, and she said my stride looked 10 years younger. I was not dragging my feet anymore because the internal swelling had finally subsided. Now, before I tell you about the big one, I need to talk about the fourth thing. This one goes against everything we were told in the 1990s when everyone was terrified of fats. I am talking about hard-aged cheese, specifically real Parmesan cheese. Not the fake powder in the plastic shaker, but the real hard stuff from Italy. As your muscles get weak, your bones often get porous and weak right along with them. They share the same neighborhood, and if the neighborhood goes bad, everything suffers. Parmesan is a dense, absolute powerhouse of pure, absorbable calcium. I learned that calcium does not just sit in your bones. It is the chemical trigger that physically makes your muscle fibers slide together and contract. If your calcium is low, your muscles cannot generate power no matter how hard you try. I started grating real Parmesan over my eggs and over my vegetables, just a small handful a day. It is packed with protein, and it delivers a massive hit of calcium straight to the nervous system. My sister-in-law, Sarah, had gotten to the point where she was terrified of slipping on her kitchen floor because her legs felt so brittle. She started adding that hard cheese to her daily routine alongside her lean meats. It is a small addition, but it builds a bridge of strength between the bone and the muscle that you can actually feel when you put your weight down on a hard floor. We have covered the meats, the greens, the fish, and the cheese. Those laid the foundation. But I promised you the one specific food that completely stunned my doctor when he looked at my legs. This is the food I eat every single day without fail. It is cheap, it comes in a can or a bag, and most people think of it as just a mushy side dish at a salad bar. I'm talking about chickpeas, garbanzo beans. These little golden nuggets are the single most powerful tool I found for rebuilding my legs from the ground up. When Megan first brought me that research paper on sarcopenia, there was a whole section dedicated to how folks in the Mediterranean keep their muscle mass well into their 80s and 90s. Their secret weapon is the chickpea. When I looked at the numbers, I could not believe my eyes. These beans are packed with a perfectly balanced combination of top-tier plant protein, massive amounts of dietary fiber, and a heavy dose of iron. When you eat an aging diet, you worry about heavy food spiking your blood sugar and making you tired. The fiber in chickpeas acts like a slow-release valve. It trickles the energy and the protein into your bloodstream over hours, giving your leg muscles a constant, steady supply of building materials without ever making you feel sluggish. I started eating them every single day. I would roast them in the oven with a little olive oil until they were crunchy and eat them like peanuts while I watched television. I would dump a whole can of them into a bowl, mix them with a little chicken and spinach, and eat it for lunch. I made it my daily medicine, and the results were undeniable. The iron in those chickpeas brought fresh oxygen down to my calves. The protein stacked new fibers onto my thighs. The magnesium kept my balance rock solid. When my doctor asked me what my secret was, and I told him it was a daily bowl of chickpeas and chicken, he actually wrote it down on his notepad. He told me he was going to start telling his other older patients about it because the density in my legs was something he rarely saw in a man my age. I did not have to buy expensive powders. I did not have to join a fancy gym with loud music and mirrors everywhere. I just had to respect my body enough to give it the right fuel. I had to look past the convenient empty foods that line the grocery store shelves and go back to the basics. The human body is a miraculous, stubborn machine. It does not want to be weak. It does not want to sit in a chair all day. It wants to move. It is just waiting for you to hand it the tools to rebuild the damage. I know how easy it is to just accept the weakness. I know how tempting it is to buy a lift chair, to move your bedroom to the ground floor, and to just tell yourself that your adventuring days are over. But you do not have to surrender your independence just because the calendar flipped another year. If you look down at your legs right now and you feel like they are failing you, I want you to know that the door is not closed. You can turn the ship around. It starts with your very next meal. It starts with walking into your kitchen, looking at your plate, and asking yourself if you are feeding your muscles or if you are starving them. Start small. Put a solid piece of chicken on your plate. Add a handful of spinach. Grab a can of chickpeas and roast them up. Do it tomorrow. Do it the next day. Small, quiet efforts repeated day after day will build a wall of strength around your independence. You will start to notice it when you get out of your car. You will notice it when you walk up the front steps without looking for the handrail. You will feel the ground under your feet, and you will trust your own body again. I am going to keep sitting here on my porch, and I am going to keep putting these thoughts together for you. Because there are too many folks our age giving up when they absolutely do not have to. Go check your pantry. Look for those chickpeas. Start rebuilding the engine. I will be right here when you are ready to talk again.